forge a society that is colorblind and merit-based.
Hi Syria, hi Mario. So we are back again, guys. So wonderful. So what questions do we have today?
Yeah, absolutely. So our first question is from Spandana Bandaru. She asked, what is the process for applying for the EB1A visa? I'm currently a master's student in health informatics with 9+ years of healthcare experience. I have completed 3 related professional certifications. Am I eligible to start the EB1A process? And I would like to know what the expected timeline and estimated cost for this process is.
Very kind of an in-depth question. So if you are talking about field of health informatics, you may be good to start for the EB1A process. I hope you are not referring to filing, but yes, you can take kind of an initiative to kickstart it. You have 9+ years of experience, which tells me that even if I were to take an average salary of 150K, the total impact salary that we called it, actually, what is an impact salary is basically a function of what is the total salary that you have, kind of accumulated or earned over a period of last say 9 year or 10 year of a decade of your experience, that whatever you would have earned, you bring it down to the present value of money actually. So if I look at that, I personally see that you have $1 million salary that you would have earned so far, and with a 20x of factorization which any employer would have expected from you, you have an impact factor of $2 million by virtue of your work. Now, if I have to take that into account, I am definitely certain that there would be some kind of a work that you would have done. It could manifest as maybe something as original contribution, something as a critical role, something otherwise nobody would pay you what they are paying for you actually in health informatics. And this sector is also very promising. So I personally see you are good to start. Well, estimated timeline, I personally, if I have to bet on you, I would give you at least 1 to 2 years actually time frame for you to be ready for filing your EB1A petition. And as far as estimated cost for the processes, it depends on person to person. So I would prefer you to kind of come back to us, and we would be more than happy to kind of help you out in this particular case. So Sapandana, wish you all the best, and thank you for letting us know about your details. Wonderful. So let's move to the next question.
Of course. So the next question is, what are the biggest misconceptions professionals have about EB1A when they are first getting started?
Oh, wonderful. I think one of the means, after having studied over 1,000 cases, after having met at least 100+ achiever, out of which almost 60 are from our own program, the Next League program, the biggest misconception I think the people have that they need to just fulfill the criteria actually. The criteria are only lens to look at your profile. And when I say profile, you get EB1A for 3 reasons. Number 1 is that you are an expert. Number 2, your expertise will benefit the USA. And number 3 is that you will intend to continue in your field of expertise. If you are able to prove these 3 things by virtue of, those criteria, I think then only you can be qualifying for EB1A. Otherwise, most of the time, people believe that they are fulfilling critical role and salary criteria. They just need one more criteria to fulfill it. And many people who are aware of something called as final merit determination, they believe that final merit determination is just another criteria, which is not necessarily the case actually. Okay. So these are and of course there are a lot of other misconceptions, but these are the fundamental things on the premise on which many people conceive this in their minds, and they begin their process, which necessarily is not the right way to do. Okay. So let's move to the next question.
Yeah. So the next question, I think we can kind of piggyback from the original, but they ask if someone is just beginning to build their profile, what are the first 3 areas they should focus on to create the strongest foundation?
I think I like the question because it is not about what three areas they should focus on, which are not three criteria, by the way. To create the strongest foundation that if somebody wants to do it is that I think profile building doesn't mean that you have to fit into the criteria. The question is that there are three dimensions of success. The first is you have to be an expert in your field. Okay? The three areas will be the first, you have to be an expert. If you are not an expert, please study. When I say study, it doesn't mean that you go and take a degree out of it, but at least go back to your basics and understand the complexities of your field of expertise. And if it is a new field which is not being taught, at least read books, read research papers, things like that. So I think this is something which is going to be very, very important as far as the, your first part is concerned, actually. The second thing that they should understand about EB1A, study about EB1A, why EB1A, why the criteria exist, what is the purpose of those criteria. I think if you are able to do that, that will serve the purpose. Otherwise, you are simply wasting your time. And third is learn how to present yourself. I think if you it's not about, oh, I need to fulfill three criteria, oh, FMD is just another criteria. No, that is not the right way to do it. I again repeat, and as you rightly said, piggybacking on the previous question, so my answer would again conclude here that you are not going to get EB1A by virtue of because you are fulfilling the criteria. You are going to get EB1A because there are three reasons. The first is you are an expert, so focus on your expertise. Number two, your expertise is benefit to the US. So try to make a case or understand the complexities. Those three things, what I mentioned earlier, will help you to do that. And the last but not the least is that you will continue in your field of expertise. It cannot happen that, you kind of get into a data science and then open up a restaurant. That is not the right way to do it. Okay? So these are the unique things that one should try to align themselves to. So let's move to the next question.
Sure thing. The next question is, how do you determine which EB1A criteria are the best fit for someone background instead of pursue all 10?
It's not advisable to pursue all 10 because, the whole thing is, I like the question which is precision oriented and it is logically flowing from the previous question. The criteria are only lens. Then which lens to use? I think that's the best way to reframe this whole question actually. In this particular case, I think it is a function of your evidences that you are able to produce. Maybe in your past, you see, we had one particular student, he had created an app actually, and that app could be manifested as an original contribution. Now, it was manifested as original contribution because he could produce those results, produce those evidences, what he had achieved. Otherwise, it would remain restricted to maybe a critical role only actually. There was a paper also drafted based on that, so it could remain otherwise a scholarly article. But if you are able to create or demonstrate a list of evidences, what you have done. Before we started the first featured question with one lady who was asking about from the healthcare. I gave a particular feedback in a sense that, you have an impact factor of roughly $20 million. That's what I mentioned earlier actually. Now, for some people it could be 20 million, some people it could be 1.5 million, for some people it could be $100 million actually impact that they have created. Now, can we look at the impact from the lens of the criteria? I think that is very important actually. So I don't want to complicate, present this or confuse people who are just starting afresh right now. But when we look at the criteria, we have to look at what evidences are possible for you and what evidences that you can do it. Everything that is a critical role cannot necessarily become an original contribution because you have contributed originally to the company actually. So let's understand. So that's what I have to say right now. So let's move to the next question.
Yes, certainly. So our next question, they ask, I'm working on building my profile for EB1A. I came across these BCS and IET fellowships. Is the USCIS accepting these fellowships for membership criteria? Also, how about the IEEE senior membership? Please provide feedback based on your experience.
Okay. Rather than just trying to get into a response, I would rather say that is it relevant to your field of expertise or not? Actually, that's the first thing. Assuming that it is, for a moment, I would assume that it is there relevant to your expertise. Then the question is what evidences that you are giving for this particular purpose actually here. If you are able to give a particular purpose, if you are able to kind of demonstrate that it is relevant to your field and it makes sense, and this selection was based on merit rather than just paying fees, if you are able to do that. But of lately, because of influx of lot of application, IEEE senior membership has not been very impactful. I can just say this in a very generic manner, but there are cases which I have seen where even in case of RFE, IEEE senior membership has been accepted. Okay, so it's a double-edged sword actually. The first thing is that you have to connect it to your expertise, and second is the relevance based on your work has to be established. Okay, so let's move to the next question.
So the next question is for the EB1A published materials about the person's criterion can articles from major news outlets like Wall Street Journal, TechCrunch, The Verge that discuss technology product I work on be used as evidence if the articles do not mention my name. I have multiple published patents related to the technology discussed in these articles. Does connecting the media coverage with my patents and my role help establish that the published materials is about me, or does USCIS generally require the articles to explicitly mention me by name?
I like this question because this gets into a little technical aspect of it, that what constitutes a definition of evidence. So for example, if you have done some patent and that patent is being spoken about without the reference of your name, and if that is the question, there might be a possibility to connect the two. Actually, I would suggest getting an expert opinion for the media actually, or from some academic professor who can connect the two parts. If you are able to connect the two parts and then say, some legal doctrine like constituting document doctrine of constituting documents together or something like this, then it is possible. In fact, we had one particular case where the person was working with one of the Fortune 50 companies, and there was a lot of media thing written about the company and its work, which this person was totally responsible, and the critical role was referred in that particular media actually, and we used it for the media category, indicating that and getting a letter from the company that the work that was done by him and the media is actually about him, but as a company policy we don't refer the name of the person in the media, we don't give it because it's a company as a whole. So that worked actually. So that is the best way forward, I would suggest that. Okay, so yes, the answer to that is it is possible. So let's take the last question now, guys.
Yeah, absolutely. I think this is a great question to end it on. So some anonymous user asked, I recently came across a Reddit post from someone who's building a website where EB1A and O1 aspirants can pay to view redacted approved petitions from people with similar backgrounds. The goal is to help aspirants identify which EB1A criteria may be best fit for their profile, understand what types of evidence were used under each criterion, and during the final merits determination. See how that evidence was presented and even compare the quality of different law firms. The creator also plans to compensate approved petitioners for sharing their redacted petitions and charge users to access them. Do you think a resource like this would genuinely help EB1A and O1 aspirants build stronger cases? And how would this compare to working with coaching services that provide personalized guidance?
Well, it's a highly complex question. It takes into factor something called as the unlawful practice of law. It takes into account the roles of attorneys. It talks about the jurisprudence of EB1A. There are a lot of layers involved into this. The question is, please understand that every case is very new. You cannot just map one template over the another. I think it would be interesting to see, and to a large extent, I think this is for an qualified attorney to make a statement. But prima facie, it might be deemed, because though a specific case and information is being shared, while putting some petitions like this may not be constituting unlawful practice, because I think the lawyer can qualify this for the best actually. I think it is just good for general reading. I would just say that. But it is very important that you go to an attorney to get your petition ratified. Just picking up somebody's template and trying to map it into this, I'm not very sure about it. We have seen certain NOIDs, certain RFEs, and I have seen that even if you get a petition, somebody's petition, I don't think it is going, because every case is very unique. How are you going to define certain, it's related to expertise, and every expertise is unique based on the work that you would have done. I give you an example of one particular case recently, just now, that somebody had created an app that could go for an original contribution. Now that particular app was sold for 100 million valuation. Now, having said this, even if somebody were to get this petition, how it is going to be useful for somebody else, I am not very sure about it. Unless and until you have a similar situation where you can try to understand. But then, are you hiring a lawyer, or are you trying to take you are doing a self-petition without a lawyer? Because, legally you can do that. And the last part about comparing this with the coaching services, is something that is again very sensitive, because as far as the next league is concerned, while we are orienting the program towards EB1A, the goal of the program is to put you on a success path where EB1A becomes a milestone. A lot of our students have achieved much beyond EB1A, better career jobs, better goals, better, if I may say, better salaries, awards, and this has helped them to kind of enhance their own profile, and where EB1A becomes a byproduct of the success actually, rather than just trying to fit yourself into this. I have tried to respond to this question is as clear as possible, and if there is something else people want to know, there are multiple videos that we have created based on what constitutes the role of a consultant's roles with attorneys being there. If somebody is interested to to have that session, it is available on YouTube, and if you are not able to find it, just let us know. We'll be happy to help you out on different roles and responsibilities of different stakeholders into this league. Okay, so that's all we have for today, guys, and wish you all the best, and congratulations for embarking on this EB1A journey, and that's wonderful, and have a great day. Bye.